ADX Energy is an Australian oil and gas company with operations in Austria. So basically our German neighbor. And ADX Energy has exciting projects. They are a producer already, but they are also an explorer. And today with me is Ian Chakos, the executive chairman of the company, to give us a little bit of an update about all the operations on site. Last week, we had a great interview with Paul, your colleague, your CEO of the company from Austria, actually. And today we're talking about all the updates. So Ian, first of all, thank you very much for your time. I'm looking forward to your updates.
Hi, Jan. It's a pleasure to be here. And by the way, I'm in Austria as well. As Jan has mentioned, we have a very extensive work program which commenced in September and will probably go all the way through to March of next year. So we're very busy over here.
Great. So Ian, let's start with the most obvious thing, which is your Veo project. I think a year ago, we talked about the $1 billion gas potential on Veo. We've been there at the gas discovery. It was great. The share price went up. But last week, you announced a new press release, which said, okay, it could be oil instead of gas. What does it mean? Do we have permitting problems now? Are we still talking about $1 billion potential? Give us a little bit of insights on the Veo project, please.
Yeah, look, first of all, a little bit of a lesson on exploration. What we've discovered here is a 450-meter column of hydrocarbons. When you drill a well, obviously, you know if you have oil and gas. We knew we had oil and gas, but until you produce a well, then you don't know exactly what you're going to produce. So this was an exploration well, so for that reason, the testing program, which is going to commence in mid-October, is going to be extremely important. But what we did do was recover hydrocarbons from a sampler. We've had that extensively tested, and from that, we've come to the conclusion that this is more likely to be oil rather than the gas. Now, originally, we expected that it might be a very rich gas, which would be excellent. But in this case, we have a very light oil, similar to what we call a condensate, which is also very highly valuable. So look, in terms of permitting, it doesn't make a lot of difference. The reality is that you need the same level of permitting, whether it's oil or gas. We know there's a lot of talk about gas in Europe and how important it is, but also oil is very important, particularly condensate, because Europe would get a lot of its condensate from Russia. And for instance, in Vienna, where we have a large modern refinery, we're 92% dependent on imported hydrocarbons. So it's important if Austria can actually develop its own hydrocarbons, particularly oil and condensate, as well as gas, rather than being reliant on hydrocarbons coming from overseas. And now the question of value, I mean, both hydrocarbons are valuable if they're in big quantities. Now, we announced a range, and that range was from a low range of 12 million barrels up to, say, 200 million barrels plus. And that's because until we test, we wanted to provide guidance, but we didn't want to provide, if you like, a particular resource number. The mean number that we have basically provided is 85 million barrels, which is a very, very large discovery. If we get 85 million barrels, it'll be one of the biggest, if you like, liquids discoveries in Europe for probably over 30 years. So oil and gas are different. One of the main reasons that they're different is you need a pipeline to transport gas. You can put oil in trucks. So for a company like ourselves, if we're actually developing an oil field, it means that as we drill wells, we can produce them. And then after a period of time, that development becomes self-financing. We're doing something very similar at our Anshoff field, where we drilled one well. Now we've drilled a second well, and we're going to be building production. Now, the difference is here, the production rates on a per well basis could be much, much higher. So you get to a point where these projects can be self-financing, and then you just continue to appraise the field and then continue to build your cash flow. In the case of gas, you have to build a reserve base. You have to build a sufficient reserve base to be able to finance a pipeline and also to be able to secure a gas contract. So in a way, gas is very valuable, but it takes longer. Oil is also very valuable, but the potential is to get into cash flow much faster.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for all the explanation. And we have seen your share price going up from a, let's say, 10-cent level to a 12.5 cent level since you introduced the news. Do you think it's because investors are more interested in oil at the moment, or what was the cause?
Oh, look, I wouldn't overemphasize share price. Obviously, everyone wants their share price to go up. But as chairman of a company, executive chairman, you don't comment on share price, because if you're successful, the share price will take care of itself. So it's best not to speculate. But what I can say is, as you get into a program, because let's remember, in many places in Europe, to execute a program like we're doing here would take not months, but years. So what we're talking about here is within a 6-month period, a substantial well test, the drilling of an appraisal well, plus the drilling of an exploration well. And I think what needs to be understood by your listeners is that in Austria, we're still in a very pro-development regime. We have operating capability. We already produce. So that means we can do things a lot faster and a lot more efficiently. So what I think you're seeing in the share price is a reaction to the fact we've drilled a successful appraisal well. That will go into production. We also announced that we're drilling the Lichtenberg gas well upon completion of the Anshoff well. And then we're also, people are thinking, well, the big ticket item is obviously the testing of well char. So I think it's a reaction to multiple activities that are going on in a very short space of time.
Great. Thank you very much. Maybe just 2 short questions at the end. So tell us a little bit more on Anshoff II. You had another oil discovery. What does it mean? When can we expect maybe first production? I think when you have an exploration license in Austria, you can also start a little bit of production. Is it something you're aiming for? And the next one would be, when can we expect the first results from the Lichtenberg project?
Yes, certainly. Well, first of all, on Anshoff, you've seen the location at Anshoff.
Yes.
What we have there now is a 3,000 barrel a day capacity facility. The Anshoff 2A well, which we announced success approximately 2 weeks ago, was drilled right next to the Anshoff 3 well. Now that's at the surface. At the bottom of at the bottom hole location in the reservoir, they're about 2 kilometers apart. So what we have now is another well over and above the Anshoff 3 discovery well that will go into production. Now, Anshoff 3 is already producing. It's producing at about 110 barrels a day. We expect Anshoff 2A, which has a reservoir column approximately 3 times that of Anshoff 3, should be able to produce at significantly higher rates. Right now, we have what we call a workover rig actually installing tubing into that well, and then we'll have a pump installed, and then that well will also be producing, and we expect first production there probably in early December. And obviously that is a good thing for us because it'll increase our production quite significantly, but also increase our cash flow.
Great.
Now, in relation to Lichtenberg, that is a gas exploration well. That's the first gas exploration well that we're drilling within our core area in our ADX AT1 license. Now that's located closer towards Salzburg. And what we're drilling for there is purely gas. What's important about this well is it's only about 2 to 3 kilometres from existing gas infrastructure. So if that well is successful, then we will be able to tie it in very quickly and generate further cash flow from gas. We expect results from that well probably by the end of October, and we'll be providing weekly progress reports. We commenced drilling the well late last week, and we'll provide our next report early next week, so people can assess where we are in relation to the drilling of the well. But so far, the well is being drilled very efficiently.
Very good. Perfect, Ian. Thank you very much for all the updates on your very exciting project. Sounds like we have some very exciting weeks ahead, and I'm looking forward to your news flow. Thank you very much for your time and a quick update.
Yeah, look, and one thing to bear in mind is each of these projects has follow-ups. The Anshoff successful well has also further follow-ups to further add oil production. And we have multiple exploration prospects that we can tie into that facility. The Lichtenberg gas exploration well has also multiple follow-ups. And Welchow itself has not only appraisal potential, but also further exploration potential. So success in any of these projects will lead to further growth in the company beyond the projects that we've just discussed today.
Great, great. Thank you very much for all of that, and I'm looking forward to our next interview. Thank you.
Perfect, Jan. All the best. Take care.
Bye-bye.